tuned in to the Community Cats podcast. Ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Community Cats podcast. I'm your host, Stacy LeBaron. I've been involved helping homeless cats for over 30 years with the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society. The goal of this podcast is to expose you to amazing people who are improving the lives of cats. I hope these interviews will help you learn how you can turn your passion for cats into action. And today we're speaking with Robert Bills. Robert is a finance, arts, and entertainment professional who is now realizing his life's mission of impacting the welfare of animals. His muse for the creation of Chappy and Friends was his puppy mill breeding dog, Chappy. This 11-pound Havanese poodle was captive as a breeding dog in a Tennessee puppy mill for the first 5.5 years of his life. Chappy, now 20, enjoys life largely due to his own courage and determination to demonstrate love for his family and friends. Robert has studied humane education at the Humane Society Academy, has been a constant presence networking animals on Facebook for the past 15 years, and volunteered for 3 years at the Anti-Cruelty Society of Chicago. He is an active student of various schools of thought for solving animal overpopulation, animal abuse and torture, and animal profiteering. Robert, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Stacy. Fun to be able to sit down and chat about this.
So how did you become passionate about cats?
Growing up, we had 2 animals. We had a collie and we had a cat. And the cat started out as Tawny. That was his name, and ended up with the nickname Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. And that's sort of what we went forward with pretty early on. So he was Tigger to us. And that cat lived to 18, I think. Additionally, probably about 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, with my first wife, we wanted to adopt an animal. We went to the Anti-Cruelty Society in Chicago. And in picking one out, we thought, oh, well, we want this one. We were getting a kitten. But that one was, they were interviewing somebody about it. And so then I went over and go, what's this for? And I picked it up and she started hissing at me. This little 3-pound thing was full of all kinds of life. So I said, I want this one. And so that was Addie, Addie. And we had Addie she lived 18 years. So outlived my first marriage.
Wow. So for our listeners, I just want to position our show today it's got a bit of an administrative feel to it. So many of the folks that are out there listening are out there trapping community cats. They're doing it on their own. Some folks that are out there that are listening today are part of what we call TNR, or trap-neuter-return, organizations that tend to be small nonprofits that are really run by 4 to 6 people out there doing the work. They're doing the hard work that needs to be done in order to help get the cats trapped, get them to the veterinarians, but then also there's rescue involved. And some of these organizations then also fall into that adoption space. And then we also do have community cat program managers that are out there, and they're involved with larger organizations. One of the greatest challenges that I do hear about from the individuals that are out there that are trying to help cats is money. They're there. They want to help the cats that are in their backyard. They just don't have the money. They're not a 501c3. People really, they can donate to a GoFundMe campaign, but there's no tax deduction opportunity there. And people feel like it's really overwhelming to create a nonprofit organization. Robert, you have this wonderful idea of what a fiscal sponsor is. So if there's somebody out there that maybe doesn't want to be a whole 501c3, but yet they want to have a program, they want to be able to trap-neuter-return 200 cats in their block in New York, is it possible to do charitable good work, but not necessarily have to file a tax return every year?
Absolutely. And that's where a fiscal sponsor comes in. A fiscal sponsor is a 501c3 that effectively lends their 501c3 status to non-exempt or groups or individuals, people that don't have the 501c3 status, so that they can raise money and their donors get tax deductions. That's a big hurdle people face, especially early on. Rightly or wrongly, people do feel better about giving to a 501c3, generally speaking. And it also removes the burden of having to file a 990 at the end of the year. That's a whole tax form that is somewhat more rigorous depending on how much money you bring in. The more money you bring in, the more rigorous the form becomes. But it also lets you skirt having to have a board of directors. And that is kind of a crazy thing to try to put together these days because everybody and their brother has been creating, nonprofits and 501c3s, not realizing just how steep it is trying to really get in and get established. And finding those people to be on the board and really do the job is kind of difficult. So we step in and provide that assistance so that people on the front lines can focus on what they do best.
I'm trying to think of what this would be a parallel to. So there are many people who are somewhat familiar with the donor-advised funds.
Right.
And the donor-advised fund is a way for me to give, I don't know, a stock certificate or something to this charitable pool, because that's one 501c3 organization and where various different people are putting in. So there's multiple funds, but they're not individuals. It's all under this umbrella of one 501c3. And then I'm able to give to the charities that I want to. And, somebody else under that same umbrella is giving to a charity. However, we have to give to 501c3 organizations in our donor advised fund model. Your model enables the funding to go to support the work of an individual. So with that being said, how do you provide the due diligence that that's not going to pay somebody's, rent for their house?
Well, and that's a really great question because our responsibility with regard to the IRS is to make sure that funds are not privately inured, not paying somebody's rent, and that they stay within our exempt purpose. And so we do pretty good due diligence up front. We get letters of recommendation. I search the internet and kind of do some background work on my own to make sure nobody's registered as some sort of animal offender somehow or other. And then we put you in front of the board. The board generally approves the application once it's gotten that far. Then you can start fundraising. And to get the money, though, you have to fill out an expense report. And there are some limitations on what you can be paid for.
I'm very familiar with what I call the top of the house.
Yeah.
There is a lot of administrative work that goes into HR administration, gifts management, right? So the donations, processing those donations, tracking those donations, ensuring that those dollars are being applied appropriately. My assumption is you are probably doing program-based counting and budgeting. So in my visual world here, there's a spreadsheet and you have Fluffy and Friends and Bow Wow Dog Group and whatever. You've just got your P&Ls for each individual organization. And then there's an administrative cut that you take to be able to provide this top of the house service. And the thing that I think that's so interesting in this model is I was just attending a webinar the other day on mergers, talking about collaborative mergers with nonprofits and seeing about getting 3, 6 nonprofits together and have the same HR department, have the same financial department. So you're doing the same thing, but you've already created the umbrella and then looking for the groups to join where they've got the 6 groups and they're trying to build the umbrella. So it's sort of like you're just doing it in a reverse path. You've set up the administrative house and
Yes.
now you're recruiting for the potential groups to come in and to be part of this organization. Do I have that picture correct?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Yeah. We're what's called a Model C fiscal sponsor. So our projects, while we do monitor their activities through their expense reports, they are considered an independent contractor. So Now, there are different models for fiscal sponsorship where somebody takes you totally under their wing and they do everything. Our projects get a 1099 at the end of the year, and then they can take the expenses they've had against that income. And in virtually every circumstance we've ever had, that works fine with the IRS.
Interesting. You did talk a little bit about the process of how you find these groups. Chappy and Friends has been around for 2, 3 years or longer than
7
that?
years.
Oh, 7 years. Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Not to get out too far off topic here, but our first project was a girl who was a former show horse rider, and she had decided that she wanted to help show horses after they were retired, and often that wasn't a good result. And then she expanded to thoroughbreds, and she raised quite a bit of money.
Well, and that actually leads me to a next question, which is, what is the scale? So in terms of the partners that you have or the organizations that you work with, is it smaller grassroots organizations?
We don't have any requirements. A lot of fiscal sponsors, we're the only nationwide fiscal sponsor only for animals. There are other groups that do a multitude of things. They tend to be more regional, but we specialize in animals, so we kind of have a pretty good sense for the different challenges and problems that people run into and the difficulties in fundraising, et cetera, et cetera. And those groups oftentimes have a minimum of, you got to do at least $20,000 in donations just to sign up. We don't have that at all. We have no minimum requirement in terms of what you raise.
Right. So take me through the process. So say here I am, I'm, new to animal welfare. I want to trap cats. How would you onboard me? What do I need to learn about your business to decide whether this is going to be a good partnership?
Well, you can always go to our website and check it out. We have a bunch of our projects listed under there, under projects. You see what we've done so far. Most of them, even when people move on and get their own 501c3, we leave their project page up. So there's a record and people might get ideas that way. And we have had CAP projects. We currently have 2 CAP projects. We've had at least 1 or 2 previous to now. So not at all new to us. But to onboard, you would fill out an application. There's an apply button on our website up at the top, and it asks you a bunch of questions. I get that. We set up a Zoom call. I talk to you about what your goals are, what your experience is, and I explain how it works. And there's a lot of major upsides. And for some people, it may feel slightly restrictive, but to get over that initial hurdle of getting a project going, I think we offer a really good service. And we're cheering for all our projects. We want people to do well. Then, once they've applied and I do some due diligence, I get a couple of letters of recommendation, and then I put them in front of the board. Generally speaking, within a week or 2, the board gets back to me. Oftentimes, it's really over just a weekend I hear back, and then you're approved as a project. There is some paperwork that has to be done, an agreement setting out how we work, what the terms are, and what your obligations are, what our obligations are. And then I put a project page up for you, and I set up a URL for you. And that is a unique URL you can use. You can put that in emails. You can text to donate with our system. There's also peer-to-peer fundraising, and we accept, get this, Venmo, PayPal, credit cards, and crypto. So if you are interested in that, we actually could accept stocks too, but I generally steer people away from that because I think that would probably get too complicated for people.
But it's a great way to donate. Put it that way.
Yes.
It's a great, from the donor's standpoint, you have incredible benefits by donating appreciated stock. So I wouldn't shy away from it.
Yeah. You're also able to, for instance, we have a horse project in upstate New York, Pony Up Rescue Collective. She goes and pulls horses out of kill pens or wherever she finds them, and she'll start a fundraiser specifically for that horse. That's a separate URL. So if you wanted to have 5 cats you're raising for at the same time, or 5 different pools of cats you're raising for, whatever, then we can do that.
Did you know that attending one of our upcoming events could be completely free? At the Community Cats Podcast, we're proud to offer scholarships for many of our virtual workshops and conferences so everyone who cares for cats can participate. Whether you're looking to develop new skills, connect with experts, or increase your impact in the community, these scholarships make it easy for everyone to participate. All you need to do is apply. New opportunities are added regularly, so be sure to visit communitycatspodcast.com/event-scholarships. You never know what might be available, and filling out a simple application form could give you access to an event that will help you change the lives of cats in your neighborhood. We'd like to thank generous sponsors like Maddie's Fund, the Tompkins Foundation, the Joni Bernard Foundation, and others for making these learning opportunities possible. That's communitycatspodcast.com/event-scholarships. Don't miss out. Apply today. TNR work isn't easy. You trap them, you neuter them, you release them back into a world that barely notices they're there. It can be exhausting. It can feel never-ending. But the work you're doing, it matters, especially to the cats who rely on you. At Rescue Disinfectants, we see the work you do, the work few are willing to take on. Our powerful, vet-trusted disinfectants help you clean traps, carriers, cages, and litter boxes without the harsh chemicals that could harm the fragile lives you're fighting for. Let Rescue be there for them and for you. Visit rescuedisinfectants.com to help reduce disease risk and support better outcomes for community cats. In a recent study, 97% of respondents said that pets are family. Communities can play a vital role in helping to keep families together, whether it's reuniting lost pets with their owners, donating pet supplies or funds for pet owners in need, or offering short or long-term fostering. People can help keep pets and their people together. We just have to show them how. Did you know there are resources you can use to help bring attention to the programs you offer to help them do just that? From public service announcements, short videos, printable posters, online and social graphics, and much more. Find your resources at www.petsandpeopletogether.org/campaign-resources. #be a helper. So let me ask you another challenging question, because we deal with quite a significant international group of people. And so if somebody has a program, and in many cases, I work with a variety of foundations. So there are organizations like in Uganda, Nepal, but they've had to create their own 501c3s in the U.S. to be able to accept donations to help support their programs in other countries. Is that something that you're capable of doing?
We're capable of doing it, but we haven't yet. I'm talking to somebody in New York actually tomorrow about doing something offshore. She's a citizen, so that helps. The only problem we have in that situation, if there's already an established nonprofit there that you're raising money for, then that would be an easier lift than if you're trying to start your own project.
Right.
Because we have an obligation, as I mentioned earlier, to the IRS that, money stays within our exempt purpose, and we have a fiduciary responsibility for that money, so we have to be able to account for how it gets spent. So, yes, that's a possibility, and we're open to talking about that, depending on how it gets received, how it gets used, and how it gets reported back to us.
Yep. I understand. I think that has been a challenge for many of our attendees at our online events. So, it's at least worth having a conversation.
Sure.
From your standpoint. I mean,
absolutely.
Here we are, we're talking in the middle of the summer here, thinking about the middle of the summer. And in my mind, I always use August as my planning time. So if I'm thinking about anything for 2026, the middle part of the year is a good time to think about strategy. Here I am, I'm listening to this podcast, and there are many other fundraising vehicles out there that are crowdfunding. There's waggle.org, there's GoFundMe, there's, a variety of different things. And based on the description, there's just so much more that you're offering than those sites. Is there a different type of fee for service for all of this extra stuff that you're providing versus the GoFundMe or the sort of the generic crowdfunding option?
Well, first of all, we platform all our projects on pledge.to, which is a donor-advised fund. We talked about that earlier. But they're registered everywhere in the country that has to be registered. So a lot of people don't know this, but if you go out and start raising money, you're technically, once you raise money online, you have to be registered in all 41 states that require 41 states that require registration. Now, I think it's widely ignored, but we provide that, first of all, a benefit which you don't get with those other ways of raising money. You get the tax deduction, obviously, and or your donors get the tax deduction. We charge $120 a year for the project. The first $120 is due with the application, and then we charge 7%, and that's it. Now, when your donors go to your URL and go to your donate page, it runs a lot like a GoFundMe. They have the opportunity to cover a certain amount of the expense if they want to. But here's the great thing about Pledge. The first $1,000, if somebody decides they don't want to cover the donation fee, the 10% or whatever, then they don't have to pay anything, but it doesn't get charged back to the project either. So Pledge just eats it, which is nice because that way it can be much more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously you've been in finance, so the word fees is always out there, and we can't be shy about that fact, and so we have to be aware of it. But in my world, if I got any sort of a letter or anything from the IRS or from the Secretary of State, I'd be like, here, you have it, Robert. And that's like gold to me, to have any sort of questions or comments or that kind of thing. How about donor clarity? So the donation goes in to Chappy and Friends. You're acknowledging that donation.
Yes.
It comes from Chappy and Friends, but it's designated for the project. Is there any donor confusion at all in there?
No, there were a couple of, Benevity is relatively new on the scene early on. They didn't have a way for people they didn't get the fiscal sponsor of a thing. So I was getting donations like, what does this go to? And they can't get all. It's only happened a couple of times. But no, generally speaking, because each one of those URLs is a separate line item when we get the funds from pledge.to.
Right.
So most of those donations virtually all are easy to identify now.
So it being a unique URL, you can track through specifically from that. I know there's a technological word for that, but I'm not remembering it right now. But yeah.
Well, that's all set up with Pledge.
Okay.
At the end of the month. Now, we get funds from them once a month. And then I let myself 3 to 5 days after I get it to get them out. Projects do have to file an expense report with us. We don't just hand it off. So you do have to file an expense report with us. If somebody is proposing a project and they want to try, and that's going to cost a certain amount of money to do, or they need to buy something, we can front them money if they have money, as long as they tell me what they're going to do with it and then follow up with a expense report. But generally speaking, people just send us an expense report every month for what they have, and then I pay out. Hopefully it's all covered by donations they have.
Yeah. So if you're trying to do a capital purchase, so say you want to start a trap bank or a trap depot in your community and you're fundraising for 50 tomahawk traps, they would be able to do a campaign or something like that on your site. And maybe not with traps, but caging. Oftentimes you have to carry equipment on a balance sheet and do depreciation on that. So, I mean, maybe that doesn't get to a level until you're at a vehicle or something like that. But I don't know if you can carry balance sheet items for organizations, or the organizations are not at that point in their lifespan with you.
No, I mean, in other words, and this goes back to what we talked about earlier, all of our projects are considered independent contractors with us. So they basically kind of run their own business. We help them, we facilitate them raising money through us. So their donors get the tax deductions and they don't have to have all the hassles of running a 501c3. But in terms of carrying out their business, we give them the money based on expenses they send to us. And many of these people are going to be individuals anyway, and there would just be basically that income. I mean, I'm not giving tax advice here, but it would be the income that they get from Chappy and Friends less all the expenses that they've had in carrying out their business.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The IRS does like to see that you're trying to carry out a business and trying to make a profit, even though I know it's a nonprofit thing. So you don't want to show a lot of losses.
Right. And on top of that, that would be then whatever the net profit would be sort of their pay, basically.
Yeah. Right.
Business.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So, and that would be filed on their Schedule C. And I know we're getting into the weeds a little bit on tax preparation here, but I think these are just some questions for all of us to think about if we are thinking of forming a 501c3 organization and maybe feel like, I'm 25% of the way there or 50% of the way there, but that whole administrative side is just not there. I mean, we could have a whole nother show about insurance, really. So I haven't even touched upon that as another topic, but that's another top of the house type situation and insurance and, HR and all of that kind of stuff. So there are so many things we now have to be aware of, even if we are small organizations, that it sounds like Chappy and Friends is trying to take those worries off the plate, to be able to sleep well at night, know that, our donors' funds are being well stewarded, and that then I know I've got X, Y, and Z dollars in my bank with you to be able to use, and I don't have to worry about those sort of details. I can just focus on my job of actually helping cats out there. To me, it just seems like a dream, but you're making it a possible dream. I've always thought it was an impossible dream. But I don't know, Robert, in terms of what are you looking forward to in the future with Chappy and Friends? I mean, what's your goal as head of this organization?
I have always just had a goal of helping as many animals as possible. We recently moved into the animal hospital space, and we set up angel funds for animal hospitals so that they can raise money on a tax-deductible basis. Most of them are for-profit, so you kind of got this side-by-side arrangement, nonprofit and for-profit, and then they could raise money, and it goes into an angel fund, and then when they have a client that comes in that's deserving, and, well, the worst possible cases, bad injuries or whatever. And most of them don't cover the whole thing, but they'll cover half of it or something. But it makes it a lot more affordable for people, and people need a break. So that's one area we're doing more. We're doing more in the equine space. And then we're always happy to have cat programs. We'd love to have some more cat projects.
That would be great. That would be great. Robert, so we've mentioned it before, but let's mention it again here. If folks are interested in finding out more about Chappy and Friends and the work that you're doing, how would they do that?
Just check us out at chappyandfriends.org. chappyandfriends.org. You can also write me directly at Chapster, CHAPSTER, at chappyandfriends.org. Or you can call me on my phone number, 212-641-0203, 212-641-0203.
Excellent. Robert, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Send me an email, give me a call, and let's get a Zoom set up so we can get you going on your dream project.
Excellent. I want to thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest on the show, and I hope we'll have you on in the future.
Great, Stacy. Thank you for having us.
That's it for this week. Please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. We love to hear what you think, and a 5-star review really helps others find the show. You can also join the conversation with listeners, cat caretakers, and me on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to hit follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a single show. Thanks for listening, and thank you for everything that you do to help create a safe and healthy world for cats.